Oh, yeah, we have the excitement. Pause, everyone, because it's the Future Politics panel.
The Future Politics panel.
That's almost a good jingle. I mean, it's better than all the rest of them.
Oh, well, that is praise indeed. It's
it
not
is
like
praise
our
indeed.
jingles.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, all the production have been absolutely abominable. However, that one can stay. That one can stay. Meanwhile, very good morning to Lettice Bromovsky, political commentator and journalist, and also to Artin Jars, Labour movement political activist. Welcome to you both. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. So there we go now. So we've got a lot of stories about green rules and about housing, and this one in today's Telegraph. Sunak to rip up green rules to build 140,000 homes. This has kind of like been a story. Then it went through the Lords, and then they kind of rejected it, and then it's coming back to be a story again. Does anybody care? Lettice, let's start with you. Is this really going to help or hinder?
Look, I think that's sort of exactly what you say. Right now, we're in the sort of final 100-metre sprint in the run-up to the election. Realistically, this isn't going to get through. We're not going to have 140,000 new homes built before the next general election, where the Conservatives are expected to lose. And considering the week we've had, where we've been hit by this tsunami of new policy ideas and new things coming in, I think this is literally just that. They're trying to bring it back up again. They're trying to win more voters. Of course, we want new homes to be built, but realistically, this isn't going to happen.
Artin, what do you make of this particular policy discussion?
Well, to be honest, I think our rivers are polluted enough, and relaxing the rules on them is not a good idea. You know, there was something like 300,000 sewage dumping events last year by water companies, which is probably why 2/3 of the public want water companies to be nationalised and in public ownership. And yes, we need house building. It's often actually the Tory MPs in the Shire counties that are trying to stop it, but this isn't the way to go about it.
Who thinks that any more homes are going to be built, either by changing or relaxing this piece of legislation? And I tend to agree about the pollution of water. I think that's a sort of political hot potato across the board. But actually, if the government seem to think that by relaxing this rule that they're going to get more housing, when in fact it's taxation, it's planning rules and regulation, and it's increased interest rates that are stopping it, they're living in cloud cuckoo land, really. I mean, do you agree with me?
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think I also taking your point, Artin, about the water companies polluting the rivers. I'm not sure that this would actually add to that. I think they're doing a fine job on their own, and this would be a drop in the ocean. Does this not also cover, James, you know, when you can't build a site because there's a newt that lives there that might be endangered and things like that, you know, which is ridiculous, and it does hold up massive developments. So I think, you know, for me, anything that gets more houses built for people in this country is good.
But wouldn't it be better, and Lettice, maybe I can come back to you about this, is that people keep saying, oh, you know, we've got enough space, you know, we've built over enough, you know, we can't take any more. If you have a look at any urban area and you drive through any city or town up and down the UK, you will see that there are sites which are either abandoned or boarded off or closed off. The reason that those aren't being developed is because our taxation system and planning system isn't encouraging people to build. It's easier to build on a greenfield. Why aren't we using our systems to encourage building in areas where we've already built on the land and refurbishing? Yeah. I don't understand why any political party seems not to be doing that.
Yeah, to be honest, I agree with that. I don't get why we're not utilising every inch of space that we've already got and we've got the planning permissions through for. Because as you say, it's almost impossible to get any sort of planning permission.
Because then you have the infrastructure there. You've got the pipes and the rails and the roads and the... and by all means, upgrade them and make them better. I don't understand why we're not renewing.
But don't forget, we also have developers, and I used to work quite closely with lots of big developers who get their planning sorted out and then they sit on that land with the planning for 20 years before they build on it.
Yeah, but why do they do that?
Because they want to save money and they want to build it at the right time to make the most money. So I have a solution to that.
Yes.
If we tax them on predicted profits at the point where they were given their planning permission,
terrible idea.
They would build.
No, that's a terrible idea. I'll tell you why. The thing is, no, I'm sorry, it's terrible ideas. It shows that both of you don't understand real estate, how it works. Because if you're not going to change the market that supplies the finance, then they're just going to either sell or disrupt the values. Then it's not going to improve and increase the amount of building. The unintended consequences of what you've suggested, laudable as they may be, are hideous.
Well, look, we need homes, right? That's clear.
Yes.
And I think actually the right to buy scheme that Margaret Thatcher brought in is the cause of lots of the problems that we're seeing now in terms of not enough homes being there available for people.
It's a brilliant idea.
Well, I disagree with that. And Boris Johnson trying to bring it back. But Boris Johnson trying to bring it back when he was PM was...
The policy itself was brilliant.
But what we didn't do is then build the council homes that were then sold off, right? And this is the state that we're living in now, where rents are soaring and skyrocketing, so many people can't afford them. You know, mortgage prices are increasing because of the Kwarteng budget. But ultimately, land banking by developers does need to stop, and there are huge swathes of lands that need to be built on. And I agree with you that we shouldn't be building on greenfield lands, but we should be building the brownfield sites that we already have.
It's a distraction, because the thing is that the reason, first of all, government, local or national, should never be building housing. It's a terrible mistake. They don't know what they're doing. The second thing is that the reason that rents are rising is because we've introduced stupid taxation, because people said, oh, it's wrong for people to own more than one property, whereas you have to have the private rental sector. If it worked effectively, rents wouldn't be so high.
Yes, I agree with that.
People have called for tax. It's stupid.
Yeah, but you've also got so many landowners who are making huge amounts of profits by renting out their houses, sitting on that land, and then making even more money. Whilst people are struggling, paying £1,000, £1,500 just to rent one-bedroom house in London and many other parts of the country. But that's because of the cost. Are you telling me that either the government or anybody else? Are you telling me that the government, if they built the housing, that they shouldn't be receiving a return on their money? No, that's why I think we need a mass council house building programme in this country to sort out the effects.
So who's going to pay for that?
I think investment. That's what we should be doing.
So as an investor, I want a return. So if you do an investment...
and the council, the council gets a return on its housing through rents and through council tax.
Yeah, but your argument makes no sense, because if you do that, you've got to buy the land, you've then got to build the housing, you've then got to manage the housing, and if you're saying to me it's an investment, you've got to get your return, 5.5%, that's why rents have gone up, because interest rates have gone up. Your argument makes no sense.
Well, I think, to be fair to Arton, I think rents were going up long before interest rates went up. You know, interest rates have only gone up in the last 6 months. Rents have been going up and up, and they have been because...
interest rates have been going up for the last 2 years.
Yep, not to the levels that we've got now. No, they haven't. They've been very,
because
very
they doubled. So I know it went from like 1% to 1.5% and 2%, but that is a doubling. So if you were paying a mortgage of 100, you're suddenly paying mortgage prices of 200. It doubled.
Well, most landlords are on fixed rate mortgages anyway, which will go up at the end massively.
I've had a rant.
You've had a rant, that's fine. You can have a rant.
Thanks.
But we have, I think I agree with you, that with all these ridiculous tax schemes, we have pushed landlords out of the market. Landlords that just had 1 or 2 properties have gone. The moment you start removing those properties from the market, you push the other rents up, because it's demand and supply.
It certainly is. Lettice, I mean, you talk about housing. Everybody knows that housing should be a solution. What would you say might solve, or, you know, some of the crisis that we have?
What, in the housing market?
Yeah.
I mean, like we're saying, it's just got to be building more houses. Rent is outrageous. But
who should build them, though?
Who should be building them? I feel building companies, to be honest. I'm not sure on specifics of who would be building them, but I don't think this should always... I don't believe that everything should always fall to the government to build. I really don't. I do believe that private investments, private building companies should be part of this, building this.
Is there not an opportunity, James, where we have a glut of commercial property now in every major city in this country after COVID, doing nothing, sitting empty, that probably will never get rented again as commercial property? Is there not an opportunity to transform that into low-price housing?
So if you have a look at the BBC television centre, as it was converted. Quite a lot of that development, although there are TV studios in there now, quite a lot of that development is now housing. So you can repurpose, but it's hugely expensive and it takes enormous investment. You've got to encourage investors to do it, and government are not the right people to do these things. You have a look at big government. It's a lovely idea, but the thing is that governments aren't very good at building projects, and they're not very good at doing it on time and on money, and also then looking after them. They have a terrible track record.
But
so
developers
developers to do it.
Developers are not very good at building social housing or low-cost housing.
Well, they are if you persuade them with the right way and the right incentives.
Well, and perhaps taxing the land that they're sitting on is one of those incentives. But I think what we need is a wholehearted approach, with communities and local councils being at the heart of it, right? And we, you know, it's the local communities that know the housing needs and where those houses can be built.
Good luck with that.
And so I think, you know, I mean, you looked, you were talking about office conversions and things like that. The local community will say no, because nobody wants anything. Anyway, we could talk about this all morning, but we mustn't, because there's been a protest at Buckingham Palace.
Brilliant.
Artin, what's been going on at Buck House?
So I saw this article where a group of protesters from the campaign group Republic went into Buckingham Palace and wore T-shirts saying "Not my king," which I actually thought was a really clever and brilliant idea. I saw Well, no, I saw that it sparked outrage, according to the article online. But I think what is outrageous is that we've got a monarch with, £500 million of personal wealth. At the same time, we've got more branches of food banks than we've got branches of McDonald's in this country.
Are you jealous?
No, what I actually think is that if we're the 6th richest country in the world, and you could tell that by going to Windsor, but you couldn't tell that by going to Woking or Wrexham or places like this. And what we need is redistribution of money and power in this country.
Really? So, okay, so who gets redistributed and who decides?
Well, there's a thing called taxation, and
that happens.
Yes,
yeah.
And
I
the
think
more you earn, the more you pay, because it's a percentage.
It's a progressive tax, right? But I think what we can be talking about also is wealth taxes and taxes on people who have enormous sums of wealth, who are sitting on that. But
we do have wealth taxes.
We don't in the form
not in the sense of, but you see, those countries that have wealth taxes then don't have such high income tax. So would you prefer to see? So, for example, the Swiss system, where they have 1%. I mean, Lettice, you perhaps see the other side of this, maybe.
Yeah, I do. I mean, if we take it back just to that protest that we're calling a protest, I think it was a bit of a sorry excuse of a protest. They got in there. I know that really annoyed me. The photos of the man in the T-shirt being in the wrong position it just really irritated my brain. Yeah.
And who was the one who was wearing a cardigan?
Well,
I mean, it's just embarrassing.
Exactly. If you're going to try and stand up and believe in what you believe, that's fine. People aren't all going to support the king. That's completely fine as well. But if you're going to make a stance like that in a very public place, try and do it with a bit better organisation, a bit more of the oomph behind you. Take off your cardigans and your jumpers.
It was a bit
stand in the right position.
It
was, and it really irritated me. Also, they'd all paid to get in there, so
I think
essentially they were funding the whole monarchy organisation that they then go on to say that they hate.
I kind of, it just makes you think, don't care. It's just like,
I know, and I think the word outrage.
Okay, continue. Yeah, just continue.
Who was outraged?
I don't know. Are you outraged?
No, I don't think anyone was outraged.
I think it's pathetic. Get a life, do something useful in society.
Yeah.
I mean, protest if you want to, waste of time.
I disagree with that. To be fair, I think hats off for them. I'm sure it wasn't the most comfortable experience, and they're probably a bit nervous going in doing that. And I agree with the punctuation.
Also, they were only there for a mere few seconds. From what
they got their photo in the paper.
They did get their photo.
And we're talking about it now. We're talking about the wealth of the monarchy, and so hats off to them.
And I wonder if they would like to move to a presidential system where you end up with someone like Trump, but they probably wouldn't like that either. So, you have to think about, what's the best, worst, or
who's
Biden.
One sentence away from, losing his mind.
Of course. And, you have to think about, you have to look around the world and look at who got rid of their monarchies and how great it is.
And look at what happened when our monarchy went to France, where they say, let them eat cake and blah, 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 and then the French got rid of their monarchy. And then they look at our system. You speak to anybody French and they despair at the presidential system they have, because be careful what you replace it with. I'm fully aware that there are so many things wrong with the idea that somebody's born into privilege and power. Yeah. But the thing is that people will always be born into privilege and power by virtue of money. Yeah. And I'd almost much rather have somebody who doesn't want to do the job. I don't think any of the royal family want to do the job. And I think those who have done it have done an exceptional job. Those around, all the flunkies and the people. That shows you what happens when you have the people aside who don't have the access to the power, that they become probably rotten to the core. Look at Andrew, look at Harry. But you look at William, you look at Charles, and you look at what their mother did. Amazing.
Yeah. Also, it was in a YouGov poll from just this month saying that the majority of people in the UK believe that King Charles is doing a good job for the UK. You see him in France with Macron walking around, clearly very close. That can only be good for our relations.
Actually, you look at Macron and the Palace of Versailles and the money that is there. I mean,
let's just have a pause for the chandeliers, though. They're lovely. Now, talking of Europeans, some people have done the most weird protests I've ever seen. Lettice, what's been happening outside Parliament?
Yeah, so there was a rally, a Rejoin the EU rally that happened, and it came along with this. There was about 3,000 people there, so already I'm thinking that's not a huge amount of people. In 2019, the rally was meant to have around 1 million people there. And it came along with this rather bizarre dance, which, honestly, I'm not 100% sure what they were.
If you've ever been to a European event, which I have done on many occasions, because I spent a lot of time working across Europe, they love these public art dances and things. And then basically they said, they had like wings on.
Yeah.
It's like no wonder we're not in that.
James, didn't the Royal Albert Hall recently host a European sort of victory parade at the last night of the proms?
No. What happened at the Royal Albert Hall is that people are free to bring flags, and on an annual basis has almost become a thing, because of course it is the BBC last night of the proms that very often people bring their own flags, and if they want to bring the Euro flag, they're very welcome, along with all the other flags of the world.
There was a lot there.
There were a lot there because there are people who organise it, and that's outside our.
But I mean, this continued. Where are we? 7 years down the line now.
Yeah, no, because you've got all three political parties saying, "No, we're not rejoining," and you have these idiots.
Well, exactly. I think it is truly losing a bit of that oomph. The man who organised the protest said, "I organised it solely because I felt like it was losing some of that drive that initially had." And
I do find this argument, though, that the sand has shifted since we had the vote and now more people want to be in the UK. It doesn't matter. The sand shifts after every vote and people want the opposite to what they voted for. It was a one-time vote. We did it. Get over it. Put your blue T-shirts away.
Yeah. But also, I think the only sensible thing to do really is keep moving forward. There should never be a time where you really go back to something. The grass will always be greener.
What do you think, Martin?
But to be honest, I agree with a lot of that. So I personally voted to remain, but I don't think that we can rehash the arguments that we've had over the last few years. I mean, I think, you know, Brexit has been a failure in many cases with supply chain problems, you know, the issues in Northern Ireland, or even just travelling to Europe is a big issue for many people with the visas. And there's a whole host of...
It really isn't. I go to Europe probably every 2 weeks.
Oh,
it really hasn't changed.
There's a few cues. And also, if you look at it, you know, for example, music artists trying to do touring in Europe, that's actually presenting even more difficulties.
The biggest queues I have had when travelling backwards and forwards to Europe over the summer have been when I land back in the UK.
Correct.
Yeah, but look, I mean, again, the supply chains and things like this, you have to speak to any trader in Northern Ireland, they'll tell you. But I think what we need to do is address the issues that cause people to vote Brexit, right? So that's 40 years of neoliberalism compounded by 13 years of austerity.
I voted Brexit. Are you going to re-educate me?
No, we don't need re-education. We're not trying to hit. But what we need is investment in healthcare, investment in education. People felt left behind, and they felt that Brexit was a way to change that.
I didn't feel left behind.
Not you.
I think this is the argument. But we can discuss it all morning, but we're not going to
address those issues.
Address the issues
to move forward.
Well, maybe address the right issues, and we might. There we go. Artin, Lettice, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That's Lettice Bromovsky, political commentator and journalist, and Artin Giles, Labour movement political activist. Thank you both very much indeed for going through the papers. Next,